in the position I'm in. Like, I'm not me. So that's the mindset I have.
Stop taking shortcuts. Stop trying to take the easy way out. Success is due to consistent performance day in and day out.
I put in the work to make it happen.
I am a man who still believes in respect, in honor, and in hard work. And my message is clear as day. No matter what the fight, no matter how tough the odds, you never give up. This is what I believe. If you don't stand for something, you are sure to fall for everything. You never give up. Even if I'm the last man standing, you never give up.
Welcome to Stu and the Nunn, an online radio show and podcast focused on national security, policy, politics, and selfless service. We're here to give you an honest opinion, different perspective, and hopefully a few laughs. We do this by not only interviewing guests, but also sharing our own perspectives and asking you, the listener, to interact with us on the show chat room, via our Facebook page, on Twitter. And welcome everyone to another episode of Stu and the Nunn. You got Stu here in the northern studio where it is a brisk 22 degrees and snowing for the next 24 hours. Been snowing for the last 24 hours. Joined tonight by not Nunn, but the awesome, the always out there, the third leg in our stool, Mr. Unpaid producer Rob. How you doing, Rob? Joining me from the southern studio. Not quite as southern as Toby, but you're still southern in here.
Yeah, not quite as south as Toby, but enjoying this lovely, cold, snowy day. I'm sure you're used to snow being up there in the northern studio, but being southern, we're not quite as used to it.
No, well, you know what? At least you're not back in Austin, where many of my friends and coworkers are having like winter storm PTSD, because a year ago, roughly, and a year and a couple weeks ago, they were, pipes were bursting, everything was shut down, and it was, 9 meals to anarchy, right? People were freaking out. The HEBs were wiped out, and once I could tell you, all of them that heard there was storm coming again, they just started going ballistic. So at least you're not that down there with that. So
yeah, this time last year I was down there. We had just bought the property where we live now, and so the wife was here and I was still in Austin because I was traveling back and forth. And but thankfully before I had left here, I set her up with generator power, and we've got a nice wood burning stove and stuff. So it's nice and warm inside today.
There you go. And between the northern and southern studio, kind of almost between us laterally, our guest night, Ricoh Danielson. Ricoh, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey guys, good to be here. Yes, it is very cold. It's cold right now.
Yeah, it's a relative term, it's not, Alaska cold, but it's cold for an Arkansas or a Texas. Texas gets 30 degrees and they, it might as well be, the zombie apocalypse. To Arkansas can handle it, Missouri, Tennessee, Kentucky, but still, cold is cold, right? And like, hey, this is why I moved south. This is why I left Fort Drum. That's why I moved out of Minnesota. Why is this following?
Great cold weather training.
That's right. Yep. That's right. I always say, man, the bullets in the cold always show the real test and turn the boys to a man or turn a man to a boy. I mean, it just You start putting bullets at somebody, you see the true character. You make it really, really cold, and you kind of see who still has discipline and who doesn't. All right.
Well,
I was just about to, yeah.
I was born and raised in Texas, and the first time I saw real snow was when I joined the Army. Got stationed at Fort Knox, Kentucky. So that was the first time I'd ever seen snow.
Were you out there as a private making snow angels?
No, I other than my military boots, I don't think I had enough cold weather gear for it.
There you go. There you go. Well, Ricoh, thank you so much for joining us. We're glad to have you on tonight. What our viewers and listeners don't realize is you have a triple whammy tonight of career paths that are all pretty similar, but not necessarily common. Guys that come out of the Army, combat arms styles, that kind of stuff, and then end up in IT. Not people don't always see that. People don't ever think of the Army as the foundation for IT. Civilian people always think, oh, you have to go in the Air Force to learn IT, and Army guys can they can cook and they can boil stuff and they can shoot, and that's all they can do. No one joins the Army to get IT skills. Yet tonight we do have three of us that are all in the IT field, all came out of the Army. And just goes to break that stereotype that people seem to have, or that recruiters of other branches try to put on people. So really, really excited to have you on. So as we get into it, we're gonna have cover a lot tonight. Ricoh, you do, as I mentioned, you do have a military background. Obviously, I'd like to give some of our listeners and viewers a little bit of your background, your summary of kind of what your military career was like, and where you've ended up today.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, it's been a phenomenal deal. You're right. A lot of people don't peg not only the Army, but also the U.S. Marine Corps for cyber. And I actually have a very dear friend of mine. He's a CW4. He's not only a crayon eater, he's a CW4, and he's also in the cyber command unit. And I think he is one of the commanders, or the chief warrant officer commander for cyber, one of the cyber units in the United States. So it's pretty awesome. Really good guy. I'll introduce you to him. So yeah, just like
So crayon eater. So he was a Marine.
Yeah, he was a Marine.
Okay, just confirm. All right. Yeah.
He added 1 + 1 is not 11. I was like, you know what, you sir have just discovered Jesus. So great guy. His name is Jordan Lambro. I'll introduce you to him. Like, just a good salt of the earth human being and awesome human being. Great guy. But yeah, much like y'all, I spent some time in the Army. I was active duty. My first job was actually a fueler. Run around pumping gas and whatnot. And what I find very fascinating is when I deployed, because went straight from training and whatnot, and then I get to my unit and they're like, "We're going to overseas, boys." I'm like, "All right, let's go." We get there and they're like, "Who's the new guys?" I was like, "Oh, me." Raise your hand as a private. And they're like, "All right, you guys are going with a 3rd ACR, and you guys are going to go and kick in doors." I'm like, "Well, that's not my job." And they're like, "No. This is the way it's going to go, son." So we get a task forwarding. We push north from Kuwait. We go through Najaf and all this stuff like that. And then we wound up getting to Al Assad. Spend the majority of my time running around with 3rd ACR, MNF West, predominantly in the Al Assad, Al Anbar province. Our unit was actually tasked out of Ramadi, more specifically around the university, taking foothold and ownership in Bosch and Al-Tish, doing TCPs and LPs during the evening, doing just sting grab operations, looking for any middle-aged males and whatnot. And I'm like, this is amazing for a fueler. This is cool. This is what I do, right? And then I got back and I was like, you know what? I want to go to a different unit. I want to reclass and actually do some cool high-speed stuff. Then I went to the Guard, and it was like, hey, I'm going to go to 158, great infantry unit. Those also are part of the second of the 158. Did some really cool joint narcotic stuff over in Arizona, Nogales, working with BORTAC, BORSTAR, lighting up targets, not necessarily engaging targets, but watching the coyotes bring people across the border, doing the interdiction itself, because if you work with Border Patrol, BORTAC, they're very, very limited people. They have 1 per 100. So at that time, we're riding on side with them, doing shotgun and doing some cool stuff, chasing bad guys. I remember I was this chief warrant officer was flying us, and he was like, "Hey, we see a car running," and he gets so low that he puts the rear tire of the Blackhawk on the top of the hood of the car, and I was like, dude, if this goes bad, it's like it's end game for us, right? So we
But
boogie
but
out.
if it doesn't, you've got the greatest story of all time.
Great story. Yeah. I think that time, like, that guy actually he fell into a ditch. It was very funny. Well, funny but ish in perspective. Fell into a ditch, got pretty banged up. Get on the ground, and he's by himself. And I got two other guys coming. I'm like, all right, cool. So, and I'm looking at him, and he started doing the triage on the guy, giving him some medical attention, and speaking some Spanish. I'm like, "Donde fue this?" "Que pasa?" Stuff like that. And I look inside the truck, and the truck has like a milk crate for a seat, and the whole thing is lined with just like bags and bricks of cocaine. And I was like, all right, well, I guess we're doing that today. So
The
after that,
no, go ahead. Was that the JTF-6 mission? Was that what that still was at the time?
yeah,
Okay.
that was Operation Jumpstart. It's JCNTF. It was really cool, great operation, really collaborative. Got to work with some really good Marines out there as well. And then I got this great idea. I was like, hey, I'm gonna go back overseas in a different capacity, right? So I went to WIPS. And not a lot of people really know about it. It's called Worldwide Protection Services. That's where, like, if you want to become an operator, or whatever facet you come from, you have to go to WIPS 1 and 2, right? One's more administrative, medical, and then WIPS 2 is these all done in North Carolina, Moyock and area and stuff like that. They teach you the civilian way of how to do PSD, not versus the military way, right? Run a convoy, you have to be nice, you have to smell nice. Your principal is the main objective, right? Keeping them alive. I did some really cool stuff. Like I'm not gonna lie, like I actually got a really cool gig out of doing PSD. I actually got to do PSD for the Maximum girls when they would come visit USO tours.
Someone's got to do it. It's a tough job, right?
Tough gig to have.
You're like, what's the tightest T-shirt I can wear today?
Oh, super medium push-ups.
Yeah.
After that, got to work with some cool, really cool three-letter organizations in BBC, more specifically one of the Shark bases, and then also got to be in Camp Dublin, and also SOF Area 51. Do some really awesome stuff. And at that point, you saw the traditional PSD, you saw the traditional operator and whatnot, and then I was starting to notice, like, there was this really weird thing of, like, if you know Baghdad, there's a place called Jadriya, right? And in there, they have all these private groups like Olive Group, CSS, a little bit of USIs, but they were outside, and they were all foreign governments, like from like Aegis from the UK. Well, they had a Jordanian PSD, so I linked up with this private security organization out of South Africa. Part of them were for Olive Group, and that turned me on to how we did operations, how they did operations, and surprisingly, the three-letter organizations, the Christians in Actions, they always came around and like, hey, we have some, we just have a tasking order. How much does it cost to take this bongo truck to Ramadi? And we're in Baghdad at the time. And we start perpetuating those, those deals and whatnot. Came back home a few times. 2014, I was like, hey, you know what? I think I got one more pump in me. I'm going to go back as a private security operator, but I get a very interesting phone call, and I don't like these phone calls, which is from a specific individual, or former BW guy, and he's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "What do you want?" I got a project saying in Afghanistan. You want to go? And you've been on operations, you've been on rotation with a few of these guys and whatnot, and you're like, "Yeah, I'm in, I'm game." And at that point, I was going through a whole child custody thing, and I was like, good to go. And everyone talks about this super cool scenario, this sexy scenario of, I want to be there in the shit with my 4 guys and whatnot. When in reality, you show up, right? And it's me, it's one other American, right? And then 1 Slovak and 2 Kiwis, or 1 Kiwi and a bunch of British paras. And we're all operators at this point. I'll say about 3 of them are in shape. The rest of are completely not in shape. And our job was to go out there and provide support, if you will, for this water and dam project, right, or stability, if you will. And the reality of the situation was providing weapons to this fighting group so they can go fight this group and get the fuck out the way. And it was pretty interesting because we're actually we're housed. We're very blessed to be housed with the Marines was it 220? No, not 223. 27 or 17 Weapons Company. Really good captain over there. And he was like, "Hey man, if you're gonna be out in the village anyways, if you're gonna be out in the streets of the Zagan or Kijaki and Nole, you might gather some intel for us." And we wound up, indirectly kind of being an asset with them and for them. And we're like, "Hey, cool, no problem." And we just give them, you do the fob drug deals. Hey, I'll go do this stuff for you. I'll go get you guys Pepsi, Coca-Cola, ice, whatever. If we can have 3 hots and a cotton, and it was a fair deal. But that was the extent of the whole military operator type deal. It was very, very cool. Got to do some law enforcement stuff. I believe I'm going to be giving up my badge here this year for the U.S. Marshals posse in Arizona. So I think I'm done with that. And then that's another retirement. But throughout the whole time, leaving the military, I actually wanted to give back to my community, and I became a suicide prevention counselor. And that was really tough, but that spawned me to go to law school, finish law school, and help General Maximum in Arizona stand up veteran court, where every Friday we would get this docket, right? And it's like the great thing about Arizona, if you ever get hooked in Arizona for some odd reason, if you ever go wind up in jail, I don't know if you know this, but the veteran population actually has their own gen pop and also has their own cells, so you're not commingled with the rest of the population. And so they actually have less than 1% of recidivism from the veteran population because of veteran court. What we did, I was like, hey, I finished up law school. I was like, I'm going to do some cool stuff. And being an attorney sucks. I'll be honest with you. Nobody likes you. Everybody questions you. I don't know why, but everyone questions you. But doing that, I found a moment of like, hey, emotional sobriety. You're just like, hey man, we're doing some cool stuff. You work intertwinely with these community resources, mental health resources, rehab sources, the VA, and you're getting all these sources connected with for our fellow veterans. And you're like, hey man, just stick to the plan. You can do this. And then we created a diversionary program for a lot of these guys who got charges, and it was super cool. It was fun being in the legal system, being a legal professional. And then all of a sudden I was just like, hey man, I'm kind of done with this.
You've changed careers a few times. You've pivoted a few times.
Yeah. Every friend of mine was just like, hey dude, why aren't you out getting hammered with us? Why are you studying to be a lawyer? Like, who does that? And I was like, I don't know, man. My kidneys can only take so much. So
yeah. The brain can take more, so there you go. Hey, so we're gonna pause right there. I want to roll back to a couple of things. I mean, obviously you've had a heck of a career, both active guard, civilian, working on behalf of the Department of Defense and doing things. I mean, any one of those things is a phenomenal story in itself. But man, you have touched you've seen a lot of things. So the first thing I want to ask: have you thought about writing a book? I mean, I know you weren't a SEAL, so it's not the first thought in your mind, right? But
so I actually have 3 books out right now.
Oh, so you do? Okay, good.
Yeah. So, surprise!
I didn't know.
Yeah. So when I was going through law school and kind of being a single parent and whatnot, there was this always joke that Sergeant Major and I would always talk about that, like, there's like, Rico, there's no fucking handbook how to be a parent. And I'm like, stand by, hang on, let me get you right quick. So I actually wrote this book called Battlefield Parenthood, a tactical manual how to be a parent, right? And it's actually more geared towards the deployed soldier, the PFC, the person who is just not there in the picture. And I'll tell you right now, like, I wrote based upon me, like, how can I be a parent at such a far, far disadvantage? I'm overseas, I'm in Dubai, I'm in Jordan, I'm in Malaysia.
Right.
I don't have custody of my son. Like, what can I do? So I developed this real simple plan. I was like, here, it's on Amazon. I actually make it very affordable. So that book is very specifically affordable because I have it breaks my heart to see my fellow veterans lose their family over just stupidity. So I'm like, here's something that can be done. That book was actually found in I think 29 different mental health facilities as a support book.
Oh, that's
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what else have you read? What else do you have out?
Yeah, so there was a book right after that. It was called The Rise of the Vetrepreneur, or the Veteran veteran entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And what I did there is I did a 4K study, right? And I said, hey, I'm going to interview 18 Series Nutrition. These guys are really cool. Brett and Ben from American Grains, and then Daniel. He was a prior owner of Grunt Style, and then some other individuals. Well, another SF guy over in Portland. He kind of wanted to be named anonymous, but super cool guy, man. And I asked some questions. I was like, hey, I'm an entrepreneur. Now, back then I was a really shitty entrepreneur. I was like, you're an entrepreneur. What is this going to look like? So same premise with the first book. I kind of wrote this book. Here's what a journey looks like. And the reason I wanted to do that is because we as veterans, we only have wartime stories. We only have wartime hero stories, and predominantly in history. So I was like, why can't there be history of the veteran entrepreneur? And that was the premise behind that. That led into my third book. That's called The Rise of the Veteran Elite, right? And so what I did there is actually did a quantitative, qualitative study in regards to what it takes to be a veteran athlete. And I sample set 100 different athletes from anywhere from Black, white, Hispanic, multiple incomes, no incomes, powerlifters, Olympian. One of them, what was her name? I forget. Jackie something. She was she represented the United States and also the United States Air Force in sprinting in the Olympics. And I was like, what? And then I met Lieutenant Colonel. I'll keep his name anonymous. He was in the group. And him, great interview. And so like that one right there was another way that I'm actually in the process of submitting that book to the Library of Congress. So we have something that we can look back at.
I wanted to back up a little further to when you went into the military. I mean, you're obviously a very bright guy. You're in the IT industry now. You went in as a petroleum specialist. So what made you decide to go to the military, first of all? And then how did you come to that MOS? I mean, was it just didn't have a choice? Didn't know what you want? What did you do?
Yeah. So, and transmit. This is a great question. I was in a different position in life. My parents had just passed away. My mother had passed away a few years ago before that, and then right after that, my father had just it was it, right? So I was there was no choice. It was like be homeless or do that, right? And family, we had a very, very small family, and I was like, all right, there's no choice. My brother allowed me to sleep on this couch, which was an inflatable couch we got at Walmart. I remember that. Back then we were, my brother and I give my hat to my brother Jesus, that we had a very hard life. And I remember he and I would take our money, we would go to McDonald's. This was when quarter pounders were a quarter. We would buy like 19 of them and then freeze them. We eat those throughout the week. That ramen. Yeah, so life was pretty rough, and I saw it. I was like, hey man, this is the way out, right? So I went, and they're like, hey, this job has a bonus and it ships like next week. You want to go? I'm like, sign me in, count me in. And then after that, it was just kind of game on. I more gravitated towards the more combative stuff. I was like, hey, I'm really interested in the infantry, and they're like, well, when you get to your unit, you can definitely reclass, blah blah blah.
Oh, all the recruiters say that. All the recruiters say, oh yeah, when you get there, they'll let you just tell your commander you want to go do it.
They'll let you go anywhere. Yeah, I had a very, very similar path. My dad had passed away when I was 16, and my dad was a Marine and then Korea, and my path forward was the military. Unfortunately for me, I chose a career in IT at the time. I knew what I wanted, and I had to sign for 5 years, and then I ended up doing 8 and got out. But into the IT space, fast forward to where you're at now doing cybersecurity. What brought you? I mean, you've had numerous different careers in various different areas, and to land in the IT field, what brought you here?
So IT is a little bit, I would say, more cyber, right? So when I went on my like maybe 10th or so raid in Ramadi, I remember we brought a staff sergeant with us. And he was with one of the 30th here. I think he was with Saber Squadron or something like that. He's like, hey, I'm just going to roll with you guys. Whatever we get bag and tag. Let's roll. Cool. So we kick in the door. Cool, no problem. We come back to the little fob area. And he's like, hey, you want to see something cool, man? I was like, check. I want to see anything besides combat right now. And he's like, good to go. He gets this FTK imager or this Cellbrite and just plugs it right in and dumps all the data. And I was like, okay, what's that about? And he's like, we're gonna take this right here, and back then you obviously print shit, and then you take it to the commander, and the commander dissects the information, kind of scrutinizes, says, okay, here's our next HPT, blah blah. And back then, I actually had the gumption to be like, that right there is going to be in the consumer's hands, customer's hands in 10 years. Right? So you fast forward, you go to OGA, you go to these different organizations and whatnot. Same thing. Like I would say, like, man, there's so much value in data, real live data, real time data. And then same thing when I was an attorney, right? When I was doing legal stuff, I'm telling you, man, the motion for spoliation, the motion for discovery, like that's data 100%, right? So I got to the point where I was like, man, instead of doing legal stuff, why not just be the forensics expert, the digital forensics expert? And I just leaned into that really, really hard. I got into it before there's incident response and digital forensics. It was just forensics, like dead box forensics, live box forensics, stuff like that. And I just ran with it, and I just kept going. Before I knew it, I'm getting called up by Maricopa County for capital punishment cases, death penalty cases, child pornography cases as a subject matter expert in digital forensics. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. So I'm here, and now you fast forward just a little bit more, right? Now I'm handling cyber breaches for hospitals that completely go down overnight, all the way to banks, financial firms, private firms, and actually doing ransomware negotiation, reaching out to the threat actor and saying, hey, do you realize you took down a hospital? What type of negotiation you want to do? So it's been a pretty adventurous, fun area and career in the cyber field.
Well, on the legal side, when you're talking data, you're time sensitive, right? So if you have, whether it's statute of limitations, whether you have hit or miss, whatever, some of that data, you got to have it immediately. And the cyber, the cyber security aspect of that comes into play tremendously.
Yeah, that's where I had a leg up on a lot of my fellow attorneys and whatnot. It was funny. They would be like, yeah, just go ahead and do a motion for spoliation on that server. I said, by the time that goes all the way around, those logs are gone. I said, if anything, you need to put that ICE on there. You need to get the image of it. Let it sit there just in case. And I would always get people on a technicality on that.
Yeah, so you went from one battlefield to another, right? You went from battlefield in the sand and on the ground to literally a battlefield in cyberspace when somebody comes after, does a ransom attack or something like that, or tries to take something. You're like you just said, you're talking to the threat actor. You're trying to negotiate. Like we negotiate with everything else. Did you, I mean, you talked about early on in your career, you saw things, you got exposed just, by a fluke. Like you said, hey, I'm supposed to be pumping gas. I'm going to go, doing other things. Was there something along the way did you always have a knack? Were you kind of a geek guy? Did you always like the gadgets? I mean, was there something did you take a college course that kind of got you into the IT stuff? Just anything along that, or no? Never?
No. One thing I'll look back at, I think last month I did a talk at the USO, right? So I'm on those talks every quarter, giving guidance and professional guidance on how to get into the IT and cybersecurity field. And mind you, like I didn't know anything at this point. Like I was just a knuckle dragger, fuel guy, and then also all that good stuff. And so I was like, hey, what do I know? So I just started with a book. I said, what did that staff sergeant do? He did forensics. What does that mean? I just went down that drill and just went down it. No experience whatsoever. And then, obviously going through Sec Plus, Net Plus, all these certifications. And then just kind of just leaning into it even harder after all those certifications. Getting my technical acumen up very, very quickly.
Yeah, you seem to have the cognitive, but not, a lot of people, depending on what age in life they start going after this, they don't start young, and whether they're coding or understanding the infrastructure side of it, routers and firewalls and perimeters, and that kind of start later in life. It's just hard to grasp some of that. But years of other things filling that gray matter.
Yep, absolutely. I honestly believe that, if you're not in technology, right? Because I own a semi-truck business and I own other businesses as well. But if you're not in technology and you use it every day, it's very much like your shooting skills, right? They're very perishable. You need to be doing your drills. You need to be doing your sidearm drill, your main gun drill, and then also same with medical, right? Like if you don't know how to triage somebody, if you don't know how to triage a situation in cyber, you're going to be the exact same position you were. And unfortunately, the way cyber moves is just as fast. You're going to be behind the power curve.
No,
Well, the IT industry as a whole is such a, I mean, it covers a lot, right? Whether you're talking like Troy said, you're talking networks, you're talking server hardware, you're talking about, architecture. Now you're talking cloud, you're talking, but all of that is driven by data, right?
Yep.
So we live in a data-driven society. Everything collects your data, everything uses your data. Whether it's social media, whether it's your bank or your phone. Everything is driven by that data and pushed back into your face. But with that being said, we also live in the misinformation age, right?
Oh,
And
yes.
so in the cyberspace, misinformation is huge, right?
Mhm.
Especially as you're talking, U.S. elections. You're talking, U.S. involvement in other countries, like we're talking about Ukraine. Talk a little bit about that and what you see is maybe our weakness and our strengths in that area.
Yeah, so some of the stuff I see, I'm not, conspiracy theorist. I'm a very factual, logical guy. What is it, FM 31 dash something? The book of counterinsurgency and also counterinsurgency. When you look at what's going on right now in our environment, you definitely see our own emulation of our own book being used. There's no way around that. Same thing with others, the other side. Like if we're going to Ukraine, there's tons of misinformation, psychological warfare being pushed left and right to bring up anxiety and feeling as well to push an alternative agenda. You have to think 5 or 6 steps ahead. And so what I believe what's going on is with the misinformation is a cause of distortion. The best thing that obviously we all know some of this stuff. The best way to torture somebody is keep the lights on and water on, and also loud noises. Same thing in the data field, inundation of data, inundation of the wrong data, and overstimulation. And that's kind of what's kind of going on. What I see is going to be one of the harder things to compensate we as a country and also a culture. I saw this. I mean, you saw it. We're in Iraq, just printing off pamphlets and just going out there and say, hey, go out there and vote, do these things, and then you'll see, Al Qaeda, with their stuff like, hey, $5,000 reward for these infidels. I mean, you see the counterinsurgency and the insurgency. You see the counterintelligence being used against us in the same format, but it's just in the digital format, though. That's all it is. It's in a meme, in the asking questions. It's in luring comments of on Instagram or social media. What is it? One in every 10 is a bot, and predominantly is around the global research project from Russia, which are specifically farms to provoke violence.
I'm sure you've seen Social Dilemma.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just to me. That's I tell people all the time. I'm like, especially if you have kids, watch that and open right to that. Real quick, I want to kind of go back some. You mentioned a second ago how you saw something being used in the military and said, "Hey, in 10 years, it's going to be in hands." When you think about, obviously, much of the innovation we have today in our world's civilian world has come from the military. Medical advances, military weapons and capabilities, all kinds of stuff. But one that really kind of is overlooked is the IO campaign. Think back to. I'll take it back to the Noriega time, right? In lost he country and he lost power. All right, so we think back to Noriega time, right? We sat outside, he was held up in there, we jammed out Metallica or whatever it was, and the psyops, right? We see that, but we also see from the dropping of flyers in we see the dropping of flyers in World War II, right? And where try to get you because this is what happens when we do our show live and we don't pre-record it. You get it. But you look at how we dropped flyers in World War II and we dropped flyers in Korea and Vietnam, right? To do that message manipulation. we always have tried. One of our tactics when we went into a country is to take out the news broadcast centers, drop the towers, or to disable them from spreading telling we're coming, or we would take over and start spreading our own propaganda, right? Baghdad Betty, or whatever, Hanoi, Rose or whatever. We've always had this. I mean, you take that the military's been doing for eons to today, right? Again, not trying to sound too conspiracy theorists, but we know that certain networks, there's lots of compilations of montages of video where there'll be whatever the topic is of the day. You'll have 7 different people across 5 different networks say the exact same word, whatever they're trying to drive. And I think it's another example of just we're taking those military applications, those military things that we have mastered, do well on the battlefield, and they are being applied lock, stock, and barrel.
Yeah, it's true. Actually, it's very true. Even, I mean, you could just look at it on social media, right, or even your Instagram or your Facebook or whatever. Just go scroll through the pages, and you'll see that on a continual basis, you're being inundated and also stimulated from a negative perspective with misinformation, and that's just going to rile you up. And same with the premise was when we did that in Iraq and Afghanistan. Same thing when I saw in Haiti. Same thing I saw when I was in the Congo. Like, hey, the American is here, or the Americans are here, and here's this. The same thing in Haiti. Like, hey, America doesn't have any money. Why are they here? Why are the UN here? I mean, this is the same thing over and over and over, and nobody's really paying attention. That's the really disheartening part, that nobody's paying attention, and nobody wants to pay attention. This thing is not going to go away.
I think that's it. I think that they'll want to, and in our society today, the not wanting to is because everyone wants instant gratification. I mean, people used to say, and you probably heard it, people would say, how did all those Germans follow Hitler? How did they let him do all those things? How did he rise to power, right? Why do all these people in these other, holier than thou U.S. kind of mentality, of, well, we're not that dumb. How come they all followed Saddam and let him get in charge and do all that stuff? Right? And they control the media narrative, right? From Afghanistan and Iraq, whether it was Imam or Mullah or wherever those blue loudspeakers were, when they were broadcasting to an ignorant mean they couldn't read, right, had no outside influence, when they could say whatever they wanted on those loudspeakers, what they said the Quran said, or that what we're going to do to them as Americans, they all just believed it because they didn't have any other source to go to dispute. So it must be true, right? You hear it enough. Which kind of goes back to what I said earlier. If you say the same thing enough across enough mediums, everyone goes, it must be true. Right. And so when people say, how did we let this happen? If 5 years ago you would have said we were going to shut down the whole economy and everyone was going to be wearing masks and we're going to be doing all the things we've seen in the last because of virus going at a 99% fire rate. I'm not playing one side or the other. I'm just stating facts. The American people are like, no, we're not. I'm not going to shut my business. Right? We're America. We're free. Right? We couldn't have conceived it. But you say enough things, and people, follow right along. And whether, those things are, this is the right way, and everyone says this is the right way, then we should go do that. Or it's hey, this is bad. We all say it's bad without any explanation why. Then everyone goes, that's bad. That's exactly how the Germans fell behind Hitler. That's how Italians followed lockstep with Mussolini, or people followed and did what Saddam, whether they ruled through either fear and intimidation, or they just kept hammering the message.
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
Right there
Yep, you're absolutely right. I mean, we saw with Fidel Castro, same thing in Haiti. Even though there was a president, there was a lot of misinformation. Same thing in Venezuela. I saw that recently when I was on a gig in Mexico. I was training their special police and whatnot. And when I was in Sinaloa, like, the cartel has a mic. Cartel owns the microphone. They own the network, and they're saying whatever they want. They're like, and it's a very different twist, right? The cartel is like, hey, either you broker with us, or you're dead. It's just real simple. And that was continual on the local radio, on the AM stations. You could hear them broadcasting their own stuff, like, hey, this is what we want from the local village. This is what we want. We want you to stay out the way at this days. And the cops knew, and the special police knew to stay out of the way because they're outgunned.
Right.
You know?
It's survivability, right? Why try to go out there and be a hero and you're going to be a dead hero in a second? When you're packing a pistol and maybe a shotgun and they're rolling, or fully armed, kitted up, horsemen. But yeah, so now we're here. We're talking about the message, the IO campaign, but in the cyberspace, right? That controlling the narrative, but you talked about the Russian bots and these bot farms over there, creating accounts and influencing social media, which by all means, let's just be honest, right, is more influential than any major news. Right?
Yep.
I don't think anyone in the world could argue. You could take all the major networks, and they don't even hold a drop in the bucket of influence, at least on the American people, as anyone of the major. So you take an IG, you can even take a Snapchat, a Facebook, Twitter, all the up and coming wannabe Twitters, right, and all that together, and that's where people are turning into. They're not watching the 6 o'clock news anymore.
There's no need to, right?
Right.
The whole thing of instant gratification. Where is the news? Oh, I have to go to the TV for that. No, I have my phone.
I'm gonna go to the podcast. I'm gonna go listen to this bit, right? I'm just gonna go look on YouTube and catch the highlights.
Exactly. Give me the snippets, right? Give me the cliff notes. And then a lot of social media, or not social media, but a lot of media companies are now behind the power curve, and now the cost of entry is so cheap to engage and enter the media space that there's so much noise, and there's so much good noise and so much bad noise. And I think what's going to probably happen here real soon is that we're going to see a shift in the news, where people are going to digest their news in a different way. You know?
Well, you have all these major networks have. I mean, CNN is about to launch. I mean, Fox launched Fox Nation last year, I think early last year. CNN is even though they just lost their president, is about to launch their streaming service in a couple of weeks, right? CNN's been around since the 80s. They are just now launching this.
But I think it has to go more than a platform, right? So you have the streaming, you have the platform, whatnot. What I think where they're behind is they don't have the trust and they don't have the buy-in from the younger generation. So the younger generation goes based upon people who are brand themselves, right?
Right.
The person's like, hey, I want to go buy these booty bands, these Instagram booty bands, because so and so girl does it. I want to follow her. If you have something like that versus, hey, I'm CNN, nobody cares about CNN.
Right. No, I'm with you. They CNN may drive some of those influence, but in what they say or whatever. But yeah, no one's going to watch them. And you can't do, they have some of these news stations, whether they're putting up on Sirius or somewhere else, where they can report 30-minute cycle or something. But that is still not going to get everything you want to get across, and people are going to go look on their Snapchat story or somewhere else to try to see. I mean, that's just the reality of young people now. Maybe not the middle-aged and late and professionals, late 20s, 30s, early 40s, and so on. They're probably still. I mean, it's like the joke the other day, right? Was anyone below this age, is and who's Neil Young, and like before 30s, but who's Neil Young? Anyone from 30 to 50 is like, I thought he was dead, and anyone over 60 was going. Everyone going over 60 saying, what's Spotify, right?
Pretty much.
But you have this age bracket of professionals and that kind of stuff, but even then, they've already been kind of schooled and trained to still get, maybe now they're not going to Snapchat or something for their media, but they're still going to blogs, online news shows, not us for sure, but things like this where they're just getting a short little news show that they can search and find, oh, they're talking about this one topic I care, and they're going to go watch that one topic, and something's going on with the market, I'm just going to go watch stuff about the market. Oh, something happened in Ukraine, I'm going to this site to just read everything about Ukraine, ukrainiannews.com. I'm going to get them out. They're not watching Fox, ABC, 2020, Sunday morning shows, none of that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, all these people like The View or Joe Behar, like they're gonna be shit out of luck here real soon, because the younger generation is such squish watching. They're like, I don't want to watch that. That's what my dad watched, and they're gonna go somewhere else, right?
Right. No, you're right. I mean, they're. I mean, even that, right? Those shows were those daytime talk shows. People are streaming. I mean, you just look at what the kids today do. Right? Kids you can, you know, you can barely get kids to sit down and watch a movie in whole. I mean, I've some of people are probably listening now, friends of mine, where their kids, I go in a room where their kids are in there and they're watching, which I just still can't get this. I don't consider myself that and something. They're watching someone else play a video game, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm just like, I remember like turning on TV and be like watching. I love fishing, and I'd be a fishing show, and I'm like, I love fishing, but that's the most boringest damn thing I ever saw. I'm not, even though they clipped it down and edited it to the highlights. I'm like, I'm not gonna sit here and watch someone else fishing. So when I started seeing kids like, what are you doing? Oh, I'm watching this guy play Fortnite. Are you playing Fortnite? No, I'm watching him play Fortnite. What? I'm like, you know, and now people pay for that. They give money to watch and pay. I'm thinking, with all the things at your fingertips, with all you got gaming systems, you got this, you got that. Besides all the old school stuff, like you can go outside and do things. You're gonna sit here and spend 3 hours, watch some other grown adult play a kid's game, listen to them. If that's the entertainment, if that's cracking jokes, maybe, but that's where the focus is.
Yeah, that's new. It's like instead of going outside, I'm gonna watch a video of somebody going outside.
Right.
Like, what?
Right.
You can literally go outside, son.
You have to go watch someone, you know, oh, look, you watch all these epic fail videos, watch people wipe out on their bikes. You can go out and wipe out on your own bike. Like, it's funny too, right? Just not for you at the time.
I'll hold the camera for you. Don't you worry.
I'll hold the camera. It's going to be great when you fly over your handlebars. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we're going to put it online and make you viral for 15 minutes. So where do you see, let's talk about drawing some of the similarities between what you've seen. You've led an extensive and very diverse career in and around the military.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to get back to the law school thing in a second. So, but what you've seen there to that battlefield, electronic battlefield, what are some of the similarities? Maybe some of the stark difference. There's probably lots of different, really things you're saying that almost are the same.
Yep. So, you know, one of the things I always say is minus the shooting, right? Minus getting shot. One of the things I would say is that cyber warfare and combat warfare are no different. One of the things I'll give an example is I remember going down Route Irish and driving down the route and just getting something right, and sectors of the fire were going off and just receiving fire from every direction, and then all of a sudden it's calm and cool, and then back at it again, right? Cybersecurity, cyber warfare is no different. 1 minute you're getting hit from China, next minute you're probably getting hit from Russia, then from Venezuela. It's like it's continual. So the mental fatigue is there, and same with the combat mental fatigue. You need points of recovery in cybersecurity. So there's no different to me in my perspective. The only different is that one's carrying a gun and one's carrying a keyboard. That's it.
Yeah.
You know, and there's big correlation there, big correlation. That's kind of why I started. You know, I have my own coffee company, but recently I've been thinking about doing like a recovery for SOC analysts or cybersecurity analysts or people who do analytical thinking, just because it's a very stressful job, and what stress leads to the forward-facing opening entry of dementia and Alzheimer's, right? When we mentally exhaust ourselves. So there has to be a way to recover our mind, our stem cells, and our brains, and whatnot. And I've been really recently toiling with the idea of like, why not? Why can't we have something for us to recover our body and our mind?
So, wait a minute. I want to make sure I heard you. Did you say you have a coffee company?
Yeah, it's called First Responder Coffee.
You have a coffee. You have a trucking company.
Yeah.
You have a trucking company. You have a coffee company. You're a lawyer. You're okay. I'm gonna. Next time we got to get a better rap sheet on you, man. You've done more stuff than I can imagine. Oh, we got Rob coming back on here.
Yeah, it's all right. Yeah, I actually done a lot more than you. Then sometimes I realize, you know, I look back, I'm like, man, I did a lot of cool stuff, man. You know. But yeah, if you ask me, cyber warfare in itself requires a certain specific type of individual, right? It requires platoon leaders, first sergeants, directors, combat or incident response commanders. You know, where we're going in the next 5 years type deal. Same thing with cybersecurity, man. That's kind of what we need to do, and there is. In parallel, they're the same, but it might be a little bit different. But I think at the end of the day, cybersecurity professionals, much like soldiers, are very, very hard to find, and people to step up to the fight are very, very hard to find.
So besides, like say, the not getting shot at, another one, it pretty much There's a lot of similarities. I would say, in my opinion, talk about today's battlefield and today's over the last 20 years, right? The asymmetric cyber world. It's I don't know what the number is, 360, but every plane you could, not just 360 horizontal, vertical at a 45-degree angle, 30. I mean, talked about it. Venezuela, Russia, 3 hits from China, another one from Mexico. I mean, it could stop. Someone's basement, a couple basements, living with mom, whatever. Just I mean, it's a never-ending job. We talked about it before the show started. We work both kind of in this somewhat similar fields. It's never-ending.
Never.
Is there any? Is it continue? Do you see it continuing as an action-reaction? Right. Every time you come up with a new defensive, just like on the battlefield, you come up with a new defensive measure, the enemy finds a way to.
So I think the most vulnerability of Log4j continues to prove that over and over and over. Log4j is the worst nightmare in the world. I'm pretty sure I had pneumonia. I was sick. I was pretty much on my deathbed, and I'm handling a Log4j issue for for multiple vectors. I'm like, good night. And
for everyone not in IT, they just Google Log4j.
And then I did a white paper on Log4j for CISO magazine. I'm like, hey, you guys, check this out, blah, blah. And then as soon as I think I hit it right on the head because of remediation, another vulnerability of Log4j comes. I'm like, come on. So you're right. I think in every 360-degree segment, up, down, left, or right, it's its own battlefield. Like even in IAM space, right? There are so many vulnerabilities versus, me being an incident responder, I have to be well versed in all of those things. It's exhausting, man. It's exhausting because the enemy is ever relentless. They never give up. And on top of that, these sub threat actors are creating their own sub threat acting groups, and it's just they're after an ideology.
Well, the biggest problem in the IT space, I mean, I've been doing IT probably 30 years now, is even your larger companies are more reactive instead of being proactive. Security didn't really take hold and become a big thing other than the last 5 to 10 years. Yep. And most of your larger companies, security was an afterthought. And so now that cyber and attacks like this have become so prevalent, they've all had to play catch up. And many of these larger companies have older, outdated applications and systems, whether it was in-house built or it was just something that they just never upgraded. That's that server in the corner runs our financials and has for the last 30 years. Yeah, don't touch it. We don't power it off. We don't even let the cleaning crew dust around it.
You laugh. I've had customers where the guy that built the system died 10 years ago, and they were like, "We don't know what we need you to reverse engineer what it does." The guy literally died. He's the only one. It just runs, right? I've definitely seen. Mm-hmm. I mean, you mentioned, you hit on something, Rob, and the same kind of is, if we look back, we always talk about things trailing, right? The military, when it comes to IT, literally has been trailing firsthand, tell you that. But even in the commercial world, the mindset, is that it was always security was the perimeter, outside, always looking out. Someone's trying to break into our network. It took organizations a long time to realize the internal threat, and they weren't always on purpose internal threat, but they were just as serious or more a higher chance of it happening than external. Everyone was so focused on firewalls and this and that everything on the inside was open. And if it was open for someone to steal IP or steal a customer list or something, there was always this thought that, well, they're our own employees, we could trust them, right? But then you also get into, depending on the industry, if you work with higher ed universities, your user base is a whole bunch of wannabe hacker college kids. So they're all trying to break into the college system, right? And even though they're the students paying, the executive at home whose kids don't like him, and he gets up and walks away, him or her walk away from their desktop, and their kid either is a baby and just pounding keys, like so much of this stuff, or their teenage kid wants to hack and get and see if they can get in a dad's company, that kind of stuff. And there's no data at rest, right? There's protections like that. When you think about the military, it took something like a Manning and then later on in the IC world of Snowden, to make them stand up and realize that they're external threats, that just because they raise the right hand like everyone else doesn't mean that they're not, and steal data or damage or do something. At the home office, I've seen this a lot in the last 2 years. Organizations that were not ready to have their workforce be from home, and then they started worrying about who else is in the home that could get data in there and that kind of stuff, right? Sometimes spouses work for competitors, you know, and that kind of stuff. And so they're thinking that way, but there's a lot of companies, when you think about the global list of companies out there, that are still worried about the perimeter. They're not even internal.
You bring a very interesting point. There's a lot of things going through my mind right now, and this is kind of where me as an incident responder, right, actually has a table now with the C-level, and I just come in there and I tell them, like, hey guys, at this point, your incident response team, your cyber response team needs to have a seat at the table here at the executive level, because it's not if, but when you get on the Wall Street Journal, or when you get on CNN, it's a matter of when. Even Tough Shed, like, nobody wants to tax Tough Shed. Tough Shed got hit, and we're there consulting them, and I'm like, hey guys, here's the deal. I think more and more, and the other part you brought in was the premise of insider threat, right? Insider risks. I was working on a project and just doing simple digital forensics, hygiene, and also just Splunk queries and discovery. We were able to find out one of their consultants was siphoning data sheets to another bank, and at that point, our investigation, our triage and whatnot actually saved them $2.3 billion from leaving. And so, like, I don't put anything past anyone anymore, especially in cyber. You're going to see everything.
The things can come from anywhere. What was it, a few years ago that I think it was a casino was infiltrated through a fish tank. They had an IoT device connected to their fish tank. I don't remember if it was a camera, if it was a thermometer or something monitoring the fish tank. And they got in through that because it was attached to the internal wireless network, which was attached to everything else.
I didn't get into
segment
IoT,
out. Yeah, they just didn't do the proper segmentation or anything like that, and put up the correct, something as innocuous as that, especially in today's day with, your thermostats, your security cameras, all of these typical things that the typical business don't think are IT related, but are attached to your internal network.
Yeah, that's how Banner Health got breached.
You look at
in the cafe.
Yeah, I mean, you look at you can look at a couple examples. I do briefings and teachings on this myself, and we talk about the Target hit. They got in through a third-party contractor that managed the HVAC system, but they didn't have their data segmented. There's no reason why an HVAC monitoring system should have access to all your PCI and customer data, and that's how they jumped in. They got in. Better yet, the 2016 election was because John was probably altered. Hillary would have been the president had John Podesta not opened up a phishing email and allowed them get into Hillary's email server. I mean, we're talking about not just a business. We're talking about, this is impacting the world geopolitical climate. There's a very good chance that Hillary would have been elected president had Podesta not clicked a stupid phishing attack that said, click here to change your password. Literally what he fell for. And they got into Hillary's server, found it, crawled it, and it has that kind of impact.
Yeah, I think we saw the proofing case in Myanmar. With their most recent elections, people got fed up, but they saw that Facebook was actually a contributing factor to their most recent rig election. And it's very fascinating how Facebook's approach was at the fundamental ground level, where they're handing people with Facebook application already installed on it and a user account for them. They were like, here's what you do. And so about 4 or 5 years fast forward, people had enough. And so the U.S. government, or not the U.S. government, but their government seized all the political staff and whatnot and incarcerated them, and they held them until they sorted this stuff out. It was very fascinating.
Wow. Yeah, I have not studied a lot on that one. I haven't tracked that one. I track a lot. That's it. Look, it comes down to this for any organization. Big, small, government, political campaign, right? About protecting revenue, right? Reputation. That's it. All the three. That's what happens. Because even if you don't lose money directly, but damaging your reputation, killing some, even spreading lies could cause you to lose. Because as we know now, that cancel button, the big red button, right? And all it takes is someone to hit that, and your entire stock portfolio value could drop, much less your customer base could. And it could be for something made up, right? It could be something spun. But very important. Much more dangerous battlefield than I think the ones you've probably been on. Maybe not for you personally, but definitely.
Buddy, let me tell you, man, it's a different type of stress. Like, I have been approached with lawsuit after lawsuit, because you're the forensics expert, you have information, blah blah blah, and it's so fascinating, interesting. It's a different type of stress and a different type of like marathon combat when you're trying to do litigation and whatnot. It's interesting, but it's just as equal as stressful. At least in combat, at least if you get shot or when you get shot, it's gonna hurt and you might even die.
I was going to say, at least for a combat or you go out on a mission, you're prepared, you prepare before, all of that. In the IT industry, I mean, a lot of times you are reactive. Everything is so fast. Everything is coming at you light speed, and you're having to react, even when you are prepared, right? Even if you prepare as much as possible, you still, like Log4j, something just out of the blue, just drop right in your lap.
In the military, we have TTPs, tactics, techniques. They may change every several months or a couple of years. Like the light speed is those TTPs are changing the next person come out on a key. I mean, the TTPs are it's never. We used to talk in dealing with IEDs and dealing with countering things, threats like that, right? The military would come up with the most high speed. We talked about the action reaction, most high speed way to defeat IED, but our enemy would go lower speed. We would come up with these some kind of protection system around a vehicle, whether it be slots or a net or whatever it may be, and the enemy would come up with something they could have a kid. They would they went the opposite direction, and you could spend millions and billions and come up with the most fanciest widgets you could, and a guy that lives in a cave and sleeps on dirt did that entire because they just thought. But in the IT world
today, it's a 12-year-old in his mom's basement.
Yeah, and he jailbroke a phone or hacked his Nintendo Switch, and he is getting into your network.
Yeah,
or whoever took on North Korea's internet the other day.
Yeah,
I saw that.
I heard about that.
That was fascinating. Yeah,
I don't know how much internet North Korea has, but it's probably they probably have like a handful of AOL. Like they're probably still ones getting AOL CDs, but I don't know. But I'm not sure.
Hey, I remember those.
That was the big joke, right? You see that meme? Whoever distributed AOL CDs, can we have them distribute the test Corona test because everyone got AOL CDs. There was no...
we joke about that as I'm sitting here in the dark running my internet and my laptop off the generator. So that's why I'm sitting here in the dark.
So I have a theory on, and this might go way out left field, but when it comes to IEDs and stuff like that, I honestly believe that someone was teaching the advancements in technology and TTPs to our adversary real time on the ground. Other than they're not, I don't believe Al Qaeda was that smart to develop stuff like that. I believe they had somebody else mentoring them and training them.
Many felt, I mean, there's a lot of evidence pointing to Iran, right? I mean,
I think there was that. Yeah,
it was coming out of some nation state. I agree. It was coming out of some nation.
Yeah, it was very fascinating, very interesting. But we do the same things, TTPs, when it comes to threat actors, right? My most infamous one, my most recent engagement was Conti. And I can tell you right now, those guys are unscrupulous, that threat acting group. I know what they do. I know how they do it. I know how they get in your systems. And I know what they're going to do. And I know what they want. And you can just see the exact same TTPs. They will change one or two variables, but it's the same method and modality, same like warfare.
Interesting. What you got, Rob?
Yeah, I think if there's anything that really puts the stamp on where we're at in the IT world, it's if you look at what ISIS was able to do with their video quality and the ability to deliver and push that out, right? So when you look at what they were capable of doing in today's day, it really puts puts a stake in the ground as to where we're at in the IT industry and how important it is, and again how reactionary we almost have to be for certain things. But it's definitely changed the battlefield and made it more interesting than anything else.
Absolutely, absolutely. I always laugh at attorneys. They're like, "I'm just going to sue the hackers." I'm like, let's first identify them first.
That 13-year-old sitting in a basement in a foreign country.
They're not all on the dark web. Some of them just know that you didn't patch your flipping WordPress site, right? And it's simple.
They're sitting on their BMX bicycle in your parking lot,
right,
with that Nintendo Switch connected to your wireless network.
Absolutely, yeah, probably. I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah, they came by on an electric bike down your street and war dialed the entire street and found your network. And then they just looked at it and found out what you kept the same default password. I mean, that's what I mean. You could have the most high-tech thing, but sometimes people don't do the basics. And it's a low tech. I mean, when I have friends, because we work in IT, like you guys, I'm sure everyone calls you as their help desk. Yeah, family and friends. And someone will be like, "Hey, I'm trying to do this and hook this up." And I'm just usually like, "Do you know your password for your route?" "No." "What's your brand?" I'll start there. Type admin and admin. Does that work? Yeah. Okay, that's what I thought. That's the default.
That's a problem. Yeah.
It's still in place for your Linksys router. Thank you very much. But yeah, I mean, it's just I'll start there. Like, okay, let's try this. Let's try that. I'm probably about a 60% good success rate of breaking into people's routers when they ask me to. Or if not, I was like, okay, we're gonna walk through. Oh, it was set by the router guy. Well, we're gonna reset it back to the default. Just like yeah. So,
I always start off with like, hey, which rate do you want? You want my cyber rate or you want my attorney rate? I mean, either way, that's fine. Just let me know.
Both are pretty good.
Stops.
Both are pretty good.
Yeah, either way. One's 675, the other one's 1,000. So just let me know either way.
I tell my mom every time she calls me, if she doesn't call me for help anymore, I should tell her, well, that was a couple 50 per hour or whatever it was, and she's like, what? And I raised you. Mom's listening right now, I know. So, but yeah. So hey, we've been talking about you've done a lot, man. Like I say, now we know you have a coffee company, truck driving company. You've been on the battlefield as a soldier. You've been on the battlefield as a civilian, contracting. Been an attorney, sheriff in Arizona. You've written 3 books.
Oh no, U.S. Posse.
Oh, I'm sorry, U.S. Posse. 3 books. What? Got any movie credits under your belt? I mean, is there anything we're missing?
Getting there. So I did actually own a.
Were you in a Fast and Furious somewhere? Maybe in the background.
How did you know? I'm the Rock stunt double. Because obviously all of this, right? No, actually, I actually was a partner and majority owner of this company called Fulton Film in Fresno, California, and we actually did small budget films specifically around the veteran population, whoever wanted to be stars and whoever wanted to have their own films. So we definitely been doing that for a while too.
Do you have a T-shirt company? Do you make military branded T-shirts of any style?
No, that's one. Nope, no.
That's usually where you're supposed to start.
Yeah, that's where everyone starts. Yeah. Well, he's got the coffee, right? He's got the coffee, so he's got books. He's checking off all the right blocks.
Speaking, tons of speaking gigs I've done.
Yeah.
Been on national TV, national news, a lot.
I thought I saw you on The View. I thought that was you.
It was. I had the braids.
Yeah. So, were you on Rachel Maddow's show recently? Because
I was on Rachel Ray's cooking show. Yeah. Because I love to fucking eat.
Nice. Well, hey, as we covered a lot of stuff, we've gone a little over an hour. We don't keep you all night, but is there anything we haven't? You did talk a little bit about the you got into the attorney stuff about the suicide thing you're working. Or anything that or any other initiative or thing that is near and dear to your heart that you like to cover with us?
Yeah. So, when I was a suicide prevention counselor, I was also, finished up law school and whatnot. And I was also a city commissioner. I ran for politics and battle life and whatnot.
Of course you did.
It was super cool. I'll tell you, man, some of the stuff in Scottsdale, there you go. Scottsdale, Arizona. I was a human relations commissioner. My job was to bring these organizations, community resources together and whatnot. And that was one of the most rewarding things. That was one of the most fatiguing jobs I ever had. One thing I always tell my fellow veterans is that demand more of yourself, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, whatever. just demand more yourself because you know you can do more, and your buddies are relying on you more. I've seen so many of my military friends just check that box and say, "Yeah, Rico, I'm retired. I'm good to go. I'm not working." And I'm like, "What happened, man? What happened to that fire?" So, one of the things I'll just leave, our fellow veterans with is demand more yourself. And every day is a qualification day. Every day is a 0 day. Every day you have to qualify for your wife's love, your partner's love, your job, your duties, to be a father. I mean, every day it's just not given to you. You should qualify for it.
Awesome. Those are definitely good words to leave people with, and like I say, continued challenge. I mean, we always talk about hitting the lotto or getting into millions and just going on a beat. But I know many folks, including I say that too, and I think I probably may do that for a little bit just to get breath. But I think most people I know, Rob or Toby or what, I mean, Toby will never, like, that dude could win $500 million. He's not just gonna. That guy can't. Everyone I know is like that, right? All the people running our circles, just whether it's place the thrill of the excitement of the risk of the adrenaline with stress. I don't know. That's what I kind of think it.
Yeah.
I don't have that. I replace it with stress. Going 1,000 miles an hour, sun up to sundown. Yeah, that's a good way, because some people do just give up, right? And those are the people we worry about.
Yeah.
We don't want to be.
Absolutely.
They don't have anything to fill that excitement.
Yep.
But,
Very
awesome.
true, friend. Very true.
Awesome, man. Well, Rico, great having you on. Rob, thanks for coming. Thanks for finding him, dude. I mean, Rob had sent us your bio and saw it, and I was like, oh, cool. We're gonna talk some, cool stuff and military stuff. But man, you are an interesting cat, and I hope we get back on, because we even got in half of the other stuff you've done, and I think perspective on some of that, it not only be a for people. Please keep in touch with us for sure, man.
Absolutely. I'll send you.
Go ahead, Rico. Go ahead, Rico.
A couple other things that I do, especially I'm really, really paying it forward big time a lot is we need first responders. We need more people in IT. The demand is so high, and there's not enough people, one, who are qualified. Number two, let's remove qualification, who are willing to step up and do the work in IT, whether it's something. And that's part of my initiative this year. 4 times this year, I plan to do stuff for the USO again. I did 3 of them last year. This time it's going to be 4. And the idea is to hold workshops and answer real authentic questions like, how do you get into IT? How can I make a job out of this? How can I make a career? Because right now we're so far behind the power curve as a nation. Our jobs are going to India. They're being offshored, X, Y, and Z. We need to bring them back. That's kind of the initiative what I brought with the semi company, bring the jobs back. But I'm thinking we need to bring the technology company, the jobs back here even furthermore.
Yeah. We got, thanks to a fellow coworker of mine, also veteran, we got the CSP program in our company. We got our first young staff sergeant on, and about to bring a second CSP. Those who don't know, that's a program the military has, I think all branches, but work in the Army, for essentially the last 6 months that they're in the military. If they get approved, they get to go company getting paid by the Army and covered, and get to learn civilian skills and apply and learn how to work in a company, and then they can most time walk right out and walk right into it. So we've got that working in my company. It's been a huge success, our first run, and that's our way of doing it. Grabbing these guys and gals, they can get away from the unit for the last few months and get. I encourage others to definitely do the thing. Look into that if you're in the military now. If you're in a company, look into what it would take to bring. Because I think it's clear over the last year that, I mean, there's more jobs than there are people wanting jobs. Say people out of work, but people wanting jobs out. They're very bringing those veterans that bring some maturity than others at their age, probably task organization skills, conflict resolution skills, stress management skills. A lot of things that it's hard to put your hands on. It's a resume, but have multiply values come onto the because of the people at their age they already are. Absolutely. Yeah, awesome. Well, hey, definitely want to have you back on, Rob. Thank you so much for filling in. Thank you everyone for listening and tuning in tonight, letting us on your screens and in your airwaves. Ricoh, stay on for a few seconds after we get off, and everyone else, we'd like to. Got something, Rob?
Yeah, just make sure you tune in next week. We're going to segue right from IT into PsyOps. So it's going to be a great segue into that.
Rob is on it. Beautiful. He is the best unpaid producer ever. Got our next guest lined up, right? As he said, 8 o'clock Eastern here on Stu and the Nunn next week. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your people that aren't your friends. Someone give Whoopi a call. Tell her too. She's got nothing going on. I'm sure. Watch. But with that being said, we'll wish everyone a good night. Thank you so much, and stay safe out there. Stay warm and stay healthy. Well, that wraps up another episode of the Stu and the Nunn Show, and we hope you had as much fun listening to it as we did hosting it for you. Don't forget to like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. You can find all these links at stewandthenunn.com. We will talk to you again next Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. Also, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Commodity Outdoors, Veteran Outdoors, Enlisted 9 Fight Company, Warrior Media Solutions, and BooHammer.com. Thank you again, and have a good night.